Following up on my previous video about preppers burying storage containers, here we look at the possibility of burying a septic tank for either an emergency shelter or as a hidden storage area. If you haven't seen the other videos on burying shelters, I'll put links to them down below. So on to septic tanks. At a glance, this seems like a good idea, but not necessarily. Let's take a look. One immediate seeming advantage is that unlike storage containers and school buses, the septic tank is actually designed to be buried. Some tanks are made of concrete and/or steel, but more modern and economical models are made of durable polyurethane or fiberglass. Another plus on this is that when you bury one, anyone who sees it may not realize what you're up to because it's a septic tank. Then there's the cost to consider. Let's take a look at overall cost. For a polyurethane or fiberglass tank, you can expect to spend just over $1 for every gallon of tank storage. So a 1,500 gallon tank will cost you around $1,500 to $1,700. A concrete or steel tank will run you 3 to 4 times as much or more depending upon the quality of the tank, and that's still in the 1,500 gallon range. They do come larger, but we'll get into that in a minute. Large tanks, 1,500 gallons and up, typically have two ports or manholes at the top, one at each end, which would make ventilation a bit easier to figure out since these would need ventilation. Next advantage is that since it's designed to contain fluid, it is obviously waterproof or at least water resistant, and so will resist leaking and can be sealed up so that it can resist flooding when completely closed. I won't say that these are completely waterproof because part of the water resistance is negative pressure from the fluid that's supposed to be inside the tank. Now let's take a look at some of the disadvantages. Firstly, there is an issue of physical size. Let's go back to the 1,500 gallon tank. This would be about 11.5 feet long, 4.5 feet wide, and 5.5 feet tall, which unfortunately doesn't provide much space. It's hard to imagine yourself inside of a shelter that's so narrow you can touch the walls and so short you can't stand all the way up in it. Furthermore, a polyurethane or fiberglass or steel tank will be curved, so flooring would have to be installed, which will shorten the height even farther. There are larger tanks as big as 5,000 gallons and up, but the bigger the tank, the greater the probability that you would need a permit to bury it. As a matter of fact, depending upon what state or even county you're in, you may need a permit for any of these. Another problem is that there would not be equalized pressure between the interior and the exterior of the tank. Remember, it is assumed that the tank is going to be filled with fluid, equalizing pressure against the soil on the outside of the tank. So if you use a tank for a shelter or a storage, then there is no interior pressure, so there is the possibility of a collapse. And the larger the tank, the greater the possibility. The next problem is that if you have a high water table in your area, you have basically buried a balloon that will slowly push its way to the surface as the soil becomes saturated with water. Next, if anything happened to the ventilation while you were inside, you would run out of options very quickly due to the small size. Also remember that although a septic tank is designed to be buried, it's not meant to be buried too deep. So if you're looking for something that will act as an NBC shelter or nuclear biological chemical shelter, then this will not do the trick on its own. Getting back to the concept of water tables, concrete septic tanks are less likely to float to the surface on account of their weight. However, keep in mind they will cost up to 3 times as much as a polyurethane tank and likely should still be contained inside of another structure due to negative pressure. You may also take a look at steel septic tanks, but again, these are curved and will need flooring, which will take away more of the interior square footage. And since they are steel, they will cost more, up to 4 times as much or more as a polyurethane or fiberglass tank. And because of the rounded shape, these could also rise up in high water tables despite their being so heavy. And keep in mind that with any tank, corrosion will eventually happen. Like with the storage container, you would do better to pour a foundation and wall the septic tank in to protect it and help keep it level, basically building a box for the tank to go inside of just like with the storage container. And of course, if you can seal over the top, you can bury it deeper. Bottom line, I can see using a small tank as a storage or an emergency shelter, but I would not want to use one as a long-term bunker. Remember, the more you have to do to bury it, the more it will ultimately cost. So do those calculations before you even start. I hope you found this information helpful. Please do feel free to post a comment in the comment section down below if you have any ideas or suggestions pertaining to the video. Please do give it a thumbs up if you got anything out of the video. I would sure appreciate it. And remember to subscribe if you are new to the channel. Don't forget to hit the notifications tab so that you know when new content comes out, because otherwise YouTube won't bother to tell you. And do take a look at our other videos. You may find something interesting or helpful. I do have another channel called Coffee Talk. If you get the chance, please do take a look at it. So that being said, stay frosty, folks, and thanks for watching.